You're in a room where everything feels rehearsed. Conversations loop in circles. Jokes are recycled for the sake of comfort. And everyone nods in unison to ideas that don't challenge, only soothe. It's a performance of belonging, no risks, no sharp edges. Then someone speaks. Their voice isn't loud, but it carries weight. Not because they're trying to impress, but because they're not trying at all. Their words carry truth, raw and unfiltered, and suddenly the air shifts. The background laughter fades. Eyes dart across the room. Some people shift in their chairs. Others glance down at their phones, pretending not to hear, hoping the moment passes. But it doesn't. It stays. It echoes. That silence, that discomfort, it's not rudeness, it's recognition, a confrontation. That voice held up a mirror, and for a split second, everyone saw themselves without the makeup of social approval. Most won't admit it, but in that moment, their carefully constructed image felt paper thin. See, society doesn't panic when you blend in. It panics when you stand out without asking for permission. When someone speaks from depth instead of decoration, from insight instead of echo, the room tightens. Because truth is disruptive. Not because it's violent, but because it peels the skin off comfort. Arthur Schopenhauer saw this centuries ago. He warned that most people don't live in reality, they live in appearances, comfortable illusions. And anyone who pierces through those illusions, they're treated like a threat, not because they're wrong, but because they're right too soon, too clearly, too honestly. The world doesn't exile clarity, it resents it. Because clarity makes people question things they'd rather leave untouched. And the one who dares to speak that clarity, they don't just change the conversation, they disturb the entire performance. A light-hearted film plays on the screen, filled with easy laughs and predictable turns. Everyone around you is absorbed, reacting on cue, smiling, nodding, buying into the neatly packaged ending like it reflects some deeper truth. But you catch every forced line, every lazy plot twist, every contradiction they refuse to see. Do you say something, or do you keep quiet, letting them enjoy the illusion while you quietly wrestle with the truth? This is the silent curse of heightened awareness. Once you begin to notice the cracks in the narrative, whether in a movie or in the world, you can't unsee them. Schopenhauer called it the weight of clarity. The clearer your vision, the more distant you feel. It's like being fully awake in a room of sleepers, or sober in a space filled with intoxicated minds. Jokes fall flat. Conversations feel hollow. The world starts to sound like a song, stuck on repeat, and you're the only one who realizes it. Society doesn't know how to deal with that level of perception, because if the thinkers are right, if the ones who question are telling the truth, then everything most people live for, status, validation, distraction, starts to look like a performance. And that's terrifying. The entire system depends on mutual belief. We agree money matters, so it does. We agree borders are sacred, so we protect them. We agree success looks a certain way, so we chase it. But when someone steps back and asks why we trade our lives to impress strangers, why inequality is normalized, why obedience is praised and questioning is punished, the foundations shake, the illusions thin, and people don't want that. because if those myths fall apart, then what's left of the identities built around them? Schopenhauer noticed something striking about human nature intellect doesn't always inspire respect. More often it triggers the same reaction as a threat. People either argue or retreat, because when someone challenges the foundation of what you believe, it's not just an idea under fire, it's you. Our beliefs are stitched tightly into our identity. So when they're shaken, it feels like the ground beneath us is shifting. That's why instead of sitting with that discomfort, people get defensive. They don't say, "This idea unsettles me." They say, "That person is arrogant," or "too complicated," or just trying to sound smart. It's not really about the thinker, it's a protective reflex, a shield against feeling mentally small. Schopenhauer knew this rejection intimately. In his own time, his boldest work was ignored. His deepest truths? Unwelcome. He spoke of love as biology, not magic. Of free will as illusion, not power. Of our motives as unconscious, not noble. People didn't want to hear that, so they dismissed him. And today, nothing's changed. Only now, social media turns this ancient pattern into a global broadcast. The simplest voices rise to the top, shouting over nuance. Meanwhile, those who actually think are pushed aside, branded as too deep, elitist, or out of touch. But here's the real tragedy. Deep minds often feel forced to dim. They're light just to be understood. They speak carefully, shrink themselves, play roles. And when they finally go quiet, society calls that coldness, calls that antisocial. But really it's exhaustion. It's the loneliness of speaking a truth too few are willing to hear. Why are people so unsettled by intelligence? Because sharp minds don't just observe the world, they unmask it. They notice contradictions others ignore. They sense the motives behind words, the tension beneath politeness, the truth beneath performance. And that kind of perception, it makes people feel seen in a way they're not ready for. Instead of facing that mirror, they step away from it. They convince themselves the thinker is a threat, not a reflection. Schopenhauer believed most people aren't really living. They're just performing. Roles assigned to them, quietly desperate to belong. The awakened mind disrupts this performance, not by force, but by daring to ask what others avoid. What if chasing status is a trap? What if everything we're told to want is hollow? Questions like that don't just challenge ideas, they shake identity. That's why society treats them like danger. What I respect most about truly thoughtful people is not their intelligence, it's their courage. They walk paths alone rather than conform to crowds. They refuse to sell truth for applause. Their integrity isn't about superiority, it's about not lying to themselves. But the world often misunderstands that. It mistakes conviction for arrogance, mistakes solitude for rejection, mistakes clarity for coldness. Over time, that misunderstanding breeds quiet resentment and leaves these individuals on the fringes misjudged, avoided, misunderstood. Still, despite resistance, they carry something rare, a kind of moral compass the world doesn't know it needs. They challenge the comfortable. They disturb the sleepwalkers. They are the ones who dare to say the emperor has no clothes, even when it costs them everything, and history eventually proves them right. Just like Schopenhauer, ignored in his time, yet now recognized as a cornerstone of modern thought, influencing minds like Freud, Jung, and generations of thinkers who finally caught up. So if you're the kind of person who sees what others overlook, who questions the rules, notices the cracks in the system, and refuses to accept shallow answers, this is your reminder. There is nothing wrong with the way your mind works. Your sensitivity to patterns, your refusal to stay silent, your discomfort with the superficial, that's not a defect. That's your strength. Society often flinches in the face of deep thought, not because it's wrong, but because it exposes what's been ignored. People's unease around your awareness reveals more about their fear than your value. You don't have to dim your light just to feel included. You don't need to shrink your vision just to be digestible. There are others scattered but real who crave that same honesty, who see through the noise, who ache for something deeper than small talk and surface-level connection. They've walked through the same loneliness. They've wondered if anyone else sees the world unraveling behind the curtain. Consciousness is heavy. It brings solitude, but it also brings clarity, integrity, and the rare ability to walk through illusion without getting lost in it. True connection doesn't require you to silence your questions. It asks you to bring them, to use your mind not to divide, but to invite others into truth. Let your intelligence be an offering, not a shield. Let it build bridges across misunderstanding, not walls of detachment. Because the world doesn't just fear minds like yours, it needs them. Every real breakthrough in history began with a single person who refused to think like everyone else. Someone who wasn't afraid to ask, but what if there's another way? You might be misunderstood now, but the future always belongs to those who see what others pretend not to. Your sharp perception, your ability to see through illusions, your unwillingness to settle for shallow truth, these aren't flaws. They are rare forms of awareness. They carry both power and purpose. But with that comes a responsibility to wield your insight not with arrogance, but with grace. Let it be a compass, not a weapon. Let it guide, not divide. Schopenhauer walked this road before you, brilliant, uncelebrated, and often ridiculed. His truths made people uncomfortable, so they dismissed him. But time has a way of honoring those who speak what others aren't ready to hear. The very ideas once labeled as strange or pessimistic now shape how we understand the mind, the self, and human motivation. That's the paradox of insight. What unsettles people today may one day liberate them. You may not be praised for your clarity, not yet, but don't trade it for approval. Society often confuses depth with difficulty and challenges with threats. Its resistance isn't personal, it's habitual, because real intelligence forces us to confront what we'd rather ignore, and that confrontation is the birthplace of real growth. So if you've ever felt like your thoughts are too much, too intense, too different to understand this, you're not broken. You're just early. Evolution always begins with the outliers. Share this, not for clout or clicks, but because someone out there is questioning their mind, doubting their gift, shrinking their truth to survive. Be the message that reminds them there's strength in awareness, beauty in depth, and a place for those who refuse to sleepwalk through life. We need more minds like yours, not quieter ones.